Hello, I want to share the atmosphere of earthen building workshop at Yaso, Pan Yaso a few days ago. This workshop starts from November 15 to November 18, 2019. We have about 20 participants and then we built a small hut. The size of the hut is 330 centimeters by 520 centimeters. This building, the material cost $833. And we spent 10 hours total of working, physical working with this amount of people. It takes long time because too many people and most of them have no experience. So the best amount for building that make it fast is about 6 people, not more than that. It will be very quick. So I want to show you the atmosphere, how fun it is. We start with till the soil because when the soil is very packed and tight, it's very hard to work with it. It's good to till it, make it loose, and then soak with the water. Let it soak very well. That's the first step. When the soil is soaked with water very well, it will be very loose and easy to walk on it, and then we add rice husk on it. We can use rice husk or short straw or grass that were not too long. Mix in the soil to make a fiber, to make it stronger and decrease cracking. There's no recipe for it. Just add and try a brick first. If it's cracked, that means it's not enough fiber. If it's not cracked, that's perfect. So that's what we have been doing for many years. And in straw or rice husk will be used as a thickener. We can add to make it as thick as we want. So to make it easy to use to work. When we got the good thickness as we want, so we put on the bricks frame. The size of the brick can be, the thickness is 4 inches, the width is 8 inches, and the length is 16. It's 4 by 8 by 16 inches. That's the size that we have been using more than 20 years. The good mix needs to be easy to work. Don't need to press so hard, and then it's not too loose. It need to keep the shape nice. So when we fill up the mud in the form, after we level it, just take the form off immediately and then let it dry for at least 6 to 7 days. That's ready enough to use. We made the floor and foundation with concrete a few days before the workshop. Before we build, we need to set up the door frame first. Make it level and then nail a few pieces of wood to support it, to make it stay still. And then we can build to touch the frame directly. If we don't think we can finish a house in 1 week, don't put the door frame yet. We can leave this big space and then we can put the door frame later. It will be better because if we leave door frame halfway in the sun for a few weeks, it will crook or bend a lot. But if the door frame is metal, it's fine. We start to build by use the mud, the same mix as we make bricks as a mortar to bind the brick together. And then we put the mud on the concrete foundation and not very thick, not a lot. Just make a ridge on top of the foundation, about 1/3 of the top part of the foundation. That's good enough. So that's to help to bind the bricks and the foundation together. After we put the mortar on top of the foundation already, and we can put bricks on top of the mortar, gently because the weight of the brick will press it down. We don't need to press it so much. It will tight when it dry. So the second brick, we use the end of the brick to dig the mortar up a little bit so it can fill up the gap better. And then we just keep going like that. When we build, we don't need to pull the string. We just use eyesight to look at the side. We can look only one side to make that side even. That's good enough. Because the side of the brick is not even, we keep the brick one side enough. Even, that's good enough. The second layer of the bricks is the same. We put mortar on top first and then put bricks on top of it. But every time when we put brick, it needs to be overlapped with the bottom layer. The whole house needs to be built up in the same time. We cannot build only one wall or one rooms because all the bricks had to be overlapped to make it strong. Adobe building is a wall bearing system. So this technique, we don't need to have a pillars. So try to avoid to have a pillars in the wall because the pillar going to make the wall weaker than normal. Because if we have the pillars, the weight cannot transfer to another side of the pillars. So when we have no pillars, the weight spreading out all over the building. So that's why Adobe building carry weight more than normal house many times. When we build to the level that we need to put a window frame, we always mix straw with mud. We call cob. We make cob first, just spreading straw in the mud and then squeeze it to mix it very well. And then we can put on top of the wall where we want to put the window frame on. This is a help to make it stay better. Then we can put the window frame on top of the cob and then check the level. If it's high, we can hit it down. If it's low, we can support it and nail a few pieces of wood to hold it to make it stay in the same level. We need to have someone to stand on the side and look at the side of the wall often to make sure that it's straight. Because when the wall come up to our chest level, it's always in or out easily. It's good to have scaffold to stand on. That help a lot. If we have some small space, we can cut the bricks to make it fit. But it don't need to be exactly fit. It can be any shape just to fill up in there. It don't need to be nice because we can fill up with mud later. When the mud dry up, it's totally hard and bind together very well. How to build the bricks on top of the window frame or the door frame? We always stick the bricks overlapped on top of the frame halfway, both sides, and then we can fill up in the middle to prevent the weight to not pressing down in the frame too much, so it can spread on the wall more. The Adobe bricks we can build up to 4 meters in one day easily. Before we plaster, it will be easier to shape the wall a little bit. Any part that stick out so much, we can shape it off with machetes or hole or anything. It will be faster when we plaster. To plaster, we use the same mix with bricks or mortar, but we maybe add a little bit more fiber or rice husk or straw to make it crack less or not crack at all. It depends on the mix. If we add more fiber, it will not crack at all. It's better to experiment 1 square meter first. If it's not cracked, you can remember that recipe and then use the whole building after that. When we plaster, it's easier to use a square trowel, and the trowel need to be metal. It should not be wood or plastic because it's not smooth enough. If we burn the plaster very smooth, it will save a lot of paint when we paint. If it's very rough, we use more paint on it. So it's better to spend some time to make it very smooth. And then it will look nicer and then not much dust or spider web on the wall. While we're building the top of the wall, maybe not even, it can be up and down like a wave, but we don't care much about that. But when we build up to the level that we want it, we can check the level with the beam for the second floor or the roof. That this part is where we make it level. If it's too low, we can find something to support it to make it high up to level that we want. If it's too high, we can dig the wall down to make it level. After we put all the beams up, we start to put the floor on. The floor is made from cement board. Cement mixed with sawdust. It's a kind of board they call cement board. It's better than plywood because it can be in the water, last longer than plywood. So next step, it can be the floor for the second floor by we can pour the concrete on top of it, or we can put tiles on top of it. It's okay too. And then we can build the second wall, the wall on the second floor after that. Or another idea is we can do only one floor, but this part will be living roof for us. So we can add plastic on top of this cement board, and we add some foam, thin foam like 1 inch thick on top of the plastic, and then above the plastic will be sand, and above the sand will be mud or good soil or compost, and then we can do gardening on top of the roof, or we can grow rice, we can make the lawn for place for hang out is fine too. So it can be any kind of roof. After we finish the roof and finish plaster and wait until the plaster dry, maybe take a few days, and then we can looking for paint. The paint that we need is clay paint. We can looking for clay color from around the area. Maybe some people digging a pond nearby, or people making a road somewhere. If you see the nice color, just take it back home. Just a few feet back, that should be enough for the whole house. When we get the clay color, we just add water in there and then stir it, make it dissolve in the water very well, and then we can strain it. After that, let it sit. Let it sit maybe for 1 or 2 hours at least, or you can leave it for a week, it's okay too. This is when it separate, when it sit, so you can see the clear water on top, the clay paint in the bottom. Then we can gently pour the clear water out of the bucket until we have as less as water as we can. And then the bottom is the clay color that we need to make the paint for our house. The next ingredient for the paint is sand. If we want very fine sand, we can looking for sand from the rice field or from the beside of the road, the dirt roads. You can see some fine sand there. You can sift it like this. Or if you cannot find anywhere, you can use building sand from the hardware shop. That's okay also. We start to mix sand and clay paint together. Mix together very well. If it's dry, mix the dry ingredient together first, and then we can add water in there. But this one we have wet clay, so we mix wet clay with sand together until it mixes very well. Then we mix tapioca glue in there. The glue always at the end of it after we mix clay color and sand together very well. If you don't have clay color that you like, you can use pigments from the hardware shop. It's okay too. But it's good to mix with clay color too to get different color or to make the color softer than the pigment itself. We can add more water to make the thickness as we want. What level of thickness that make we feel like easy to work with, that's the perfect one. If it's too dry, we can add more water. It's too wet, that will be harder to fix. So every time when we add water, add small amount at a time. Don't add too much because you cannot fix it easily after that. When we got the rice mix, the rice thickness, we can start to plaster on the wall. Actually, we call paint, but when we use it, we don't paint on it, we plaster on it because it will be very thin layer on the wall. Paint is the last part, the last job on the wall. After we paint, it will be very hard and then no dust come out at all. It will be like a concrete exactly. This kind of paint can paint on the concrete wall, earthen wall, or wooden wall is okay too. More detail about paint in our other video on our channel, John Chandai Life is Easy channel called Clay Paint. There's more detail in there. You can check it out.